Robot templates are basically a different way um, to curate ontologies. So here, this is Protege. We use Protege. This basically all of those boxes represent an annotation, and you can click add and then decide what you're adding. Like let's add a comment, blah blah blah. Instead of doing that here, we do that in Robot with a spreadsheet up here, and this is there will be a link, in the document and in the Zoom. These are the resources that are really helpful. When I started to learn about robot, this link robot.obolibrary.org/templates is something that was really useful to me. We also have in Mondo, we have here templates where we have um, added some of the templates that we have been using successfully, so that they can be reused, and that's going to make sense in a minute what I mean by reuse. So, and there's also a lot of examples, at least in Mondo, where we have been using a lot of robot templates. So if something needs to be added and we don't know how, there's a way to find how to report these. So, uh, as I mentioned, we are creating ontology annotation. Instead of going in Protege, we do that in a spreadsheet. And so what it means is that for the spreadsheet, we have a bunch of columns. All of these columns have specific information. So you can think about like all of those columns um, refers to a specific annotation that you can see here in Protege. And every line here, except don't worry about the two lines for now, for a second. Every line represents basically a term and information to add, or annotation to add for this term. Every robot templates have all of them have the same format, in the sense that the first two lines always have to be uh, with the same information. So the first line always has to be a title for your column. It can be anything. You can write whatever you want. So here we have Mondo ID, we have label, we have definition, we have extra. If you want to say the definition for blah, 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 or instead of definition, if you want to make your own word, why would you do that? I don't know. But like whatever name or whatever column name you want to put it, it's up to you. There's no rule for that. The only rule is that every column must have a name. So if, let's say, you have a column for just random notes, which I often have, it's totally fine to have that. Robot can deal with it, and those random notes will not be added to the ontology. We'll talk about that in a minute. But if you have information in a column, the column must have a title, whatever the title is. The second row always have to be the basically the command that is gonna tell the code, tell the pipeline what the information, how to translate the information that is here in the in the column, how to translate that in ontology ontology language. So here you have ID. If ID, then it knows that this information that is in this column is the identifier here in this in Protege. If it sees label, then it knows that it needs to create an RDF label annotations. If it has this AIAO number, blah, 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 and we'll talk about how to define these, then it knows that any information here is supposed to be added as a definition annotation. Okay, so these we'll talk in a minute how to create these because there's you know there's some rules about what A means and this sort of thing. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So the rest of the spreadsheet, is basically your annotation. So every column, every row has information for the term. The first column, let's go back to the column for a second. This column always has to be, column number one always has to be the ID. So you can call it whatever you want, but like cell A2 always have to be ID. And the reason is that no matter what you do, it needs to know what terms is it supposed to be added to. So always put an ID in the first column. This ID can be a term that already exists, like this one, or it could be a completely new term, and these are made up ID of terms that don't exist. So if this ID does not exist in the ontology, it's just going to create it and add information to it. So here's an example. We have a new term ID. We give it a label. We give it a definition. We give it an OMM ID, and we have some synonyms. And then here we have some notes. We have a few things. So, and we have different examples here and there. One thing to remember is that when you use robot template, it's always going to add to the ontology. So it doesn't matter what you have here. If it is in your table, and you have a title for if you have a row number 2 here for your column, it's going to be added. So let's say here, if this term already exists, if I had disease X, then it means that the label disease X is going to be added to this ID. So if this one already exists in Mondo, and so if I leave it like this here, disease G, because if I add it this way, then this robot template will add this label, and then now we will have, this term will have 2 labels, which is not correct. So just remember that every time you use a robot template, you're going to add information. You don't remove information. You don't change the information. You just add whatever information is here. And so there is ways to work on this, and we can look at it later. But basically, let's say if I wanted to update this term, but I want to see what the label is, you could definitely just add label of terms already in Mondo. And I add more information here in my column so that I remember what it is. And then I can just add it this here, copy display name. And so here in my spreadsheet, I can follow up on, oh, this term was this ID represented this term. And since there's nothing in row number 2, it's not going to be adding this label. So if you want information on your spreadsheet so that you can follow up, then feel free to like this. Yeah. Feel free to add a column with no information in row 2. But this is something it's good to remind yourself, because sometimes you will use a robot template to create new terms. Sometimes you would, which is easy because you, quote unquote, easy because you want everything. You obviously, if it's a new term, you want an ID and you want a label. But sometimes you can use also robot template to add information, and that's fine also. But keep in mind that you're adding information, not updating existing information. Column. Now, we talked about column two, row number 2, that is very important. And it is important because it is basically telling it's telling robot, I don't know what to call it, it's telling robot what information is in here. So as I mentioned earlier, all of these are very clearly defined. So ID is for identifier, label basically represent, it's a shortcut for RDF label. So these are always the same. And then for all the rest, there is basically a code. So you see the first one, the first letter is A. A means annotations, and it means actually an annotation string. So when, let's say, we look at definition, you can see here in Protege is just a box where you type information. And here it says data type string. We rarely pay attention to it because it's the default. So when you need to add information like this, you have an A. So that works for definition, that works for cross-reference, that works for synonyms, all of these is an A. Um, and then if it's not a string, so for example, if it is something like this, and I'm looking, it's a type annotation. So when you look at let's say tracker, oh, actually, I should have not done this here. So here, if in Protege, I want to use the term tracker ID, you have a blah, blah, blah here. And here in data type, if you remember, we use, what do we use here? Any URI. For this one, instead of A, we have AT. So here we are, AT. So, and then there's also AI, which is going to come later in when we talk about adding axioms. So A is usually the main one that you're going to use. And it's easy to also remember because if you copy paste this, then you have the correct information. So after A, you have here you say IAO number blah blah blah. Here you said OBO in all database has database cross reference. So what comes after the A is basically the name for the annotations. So if we look at, let's say, definition, and let's look at it here, it's going to be easier to look at it here in the annotation property. When we look at definition, which is somewhere here, oh, here, definition, we see that the name, the official name for definition is this Perl blah 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 IAO number this. And so we could say the annotation is this IRI, but because robot is smart, it knows that it knows about IAO, and it knows that when the term IAO, it should replace IAO by this entire Perl. Same thing with oboe and owl. So in here, if it is exact synonym, the 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 official name for has exact synonym as this Perl here with oboe and owl has exact synonym. Robot knows that if we use oboe and owl column, it means this entire thing. So the comment here for all the annotations are basically A and then the IRI. And so for definition, we can shorten it. For database cross-reference of a synonym, we can shorten it because robot knows that oboe and owl means this entire thing. But let's imagine that we want to add something that is not in here. Let's like go very crazy. Has exclusion reason. We this is a Mondo ID. We don't have the robot doesn't necessarily know, or we don't know if robot not knows this. So we would basically take the IRI and then like in the second row, we would say A with the IRI. And so it would know that everything that is in here should be added as an annotation for exclusion reason. So if something does not exist in any of the template, like the easy way to do that is we have templates, we can reuse templates. And by reusing templates, we mean reusing those first two lines. But if you don't find something, it's easy to find, it's easy to find what you should be putting in the second row. Okay, so we added here some ID, some information about the label, some definition, and we have here some notes that we don't want it to be in the ontology, but working on the spreadsheet, it was easy. It was nice to have this. Here we have one that is, so as we saw, it's for this GitHub issue. We issue tracker, and this is what we saw earlier. Let's go back. For the issue tracker, here we are. The issue tracker, we know that it's an annotation that has to have a string. So it is translated in robot language as AT, the IRI for the term tracker item. And we add those two little carrots, any URI that basically translate to this is the data type that here, any URI here. This is the data type that you need to use. So that's the robot language. Here we are. And also again, we just reuse. This is what we do. Okay. Any questions? Anything that does not make sense?
No. So far, so good.
So far, so good. Good.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
This is very simple. Here we have a cross-reference and we have another cross-reference. Let's imagine you have 50 cross-references. You don't want to have 50 columns because they're all the same cross-references. It's the same annotation type that you want to add. So instead of having multiple columns, you can do something more simple that says, I will, so what here, as you can see, we had two different columns for cross-reference. We had two different columns for exact synonyms. So what I did here is I grouped them together and I added here split equal pipe. And in the row itself, I put all the value that I want to have, and each value is separated by a pipe, and making sure that there is no space in between them. So by seeing robot, because I know what a robot thinks about. I think a blah 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 has database cross-reference. It knows that it needs to add this information as a cross-reference. By seeing split equal pipe, it knows that every time there's a pipe, it means there's another annotation that they need to to add. So instead of having 2, 3, 4 columns, you can just have all that information in one column, and we say split equal types, and then we have just one column instead of having 50, which sometimes is useful, sometimes it is not. Um, we'll 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 see an example of what when that works and when it doesn't work. Um, Now, what we want to do is we want to be adding that into the ontology. So we're great. This is fantastic. Let's move on. The first thing you need to be careful. That was something that happened to us all, all the time at the very beginning that robot template merge existed, and that was really a problem. Is that when you copy paste, and if you copy paste from here, it's going to be less of a problem. But if there is any white spots or white space, like when you copy paste, there's always like a space at the end of this is not gonna work. And the way I almost made some examples, I was like, how many examples do I want to do? But if you do something and it doesn't, there's a problem, then it will tell you there's an error, and it doesn't tell you what error is. So you need to figure it out. So what I have been doing, one of the things that I put in my routine, like it's a reflex. Every time before merging, I did one of these, a robot template. I select all by clicking in the top here, and then I go in data cleanup, and this one that says trim white space, and I click on that, and then it tells me there was no white space. But let's imagine here I'm going to add some space. Then by selecting everything here, data cleanup, trim white space, it tells me we found white space in one cell. This is something, and I put a period, so I remove this. This is something that you will save you a lot of headaches. One thing to remember also about using spreadsheet is that, let's say you're going to use it, you're going to merge it, it's going to fail because there's a white space or because of anything. You can just update the spreadsheet and do it again because it's a robot template. However, it takes, and I was trying to remember and I don't remember, it takes either 5 minutes or 10 minutes before the changes can be available. So if you try to, you merge that spreadsheet, there's something going on or whatever, and then you make changes, you're going to have to wait either 5 or 10 minutes before the changes that you made have been quote unquote recorded in Google Sheet, and you can reuse. So something to keep in mind that sometimes it fails because of something silly like a white space, but then you have to wait, and that's really annoying. There's ways to trick the system, but the way I do it is by just duplicating the spreadsheet and doing it. Anyways, so now we wanna push this spreadsheet, push these ontology changes into the ontology. What we do, we use terminal, and so that looks like this. So for some people, the box is black. I don't know how and why. For me, but it's basically terminal, and it looks like. Let me see if I can put my bar here. It looks like this little thing. So the first thing we want to do every time, absolutely every time you use a command line for any ontology development, you always first need to go into the ontology file. and we want to be in the ontology file and the ontology subtype. So what I have is, something that says CD Mondo. That's what I created. What's the way to go there? If you want to go there manually, is you go, so here, you can see where it is on my computer here. It's because GitHub always puts itself in the right place, in the same place on the computer. I would go CD documents, and if you tab, it finds the place. Okay, now I'm in this folder. Now I would say CD GitHub, and then if you click tab, you can, it auto completes. And then I would go CD Mondo, and then CD ontology, oh no, CD SRC, and then CD ontology. That's a lot of writing. So if you go on the what's it called? The Obo Academy, there's a tutorial that shows you how to, instead of doing all of this, you can just give it a name. And usually we use CD. This is what I think the convention that everybody does, and nobody decided, nobody agreed on it, but everybody is doing that. CD, whatever you want. So here I have, when I just type CD Mondo, I am directly in this folder. I have that for VBO, I have that for ZP, I have that for every single ontology I am, because I'm lazy, I don't want to type everything. If you want to set this up, I can direct you to the right Obo Academy tutorial. It is saving so much time. Anyways, that was a little bit of a tangent, but basically, however you want to do it, you need to be in this folder, GitHub Mondo /source/ontology. And you need to have Docker running on your machine. And now we're going to basically tell the command line, talk to robot, and tell robot to take the information in this spreadsheet and put it into Mondo. The way to the code or the command to do that is this one, and it's in all the documentation. It's shrun.sh, which basically says, this part says, go and use Docker. If Nico is listening to this recording, he's probably like, well, it's more complicated than that. But for us, this is what it means. And then what we are saying is basically, this is the command. We say, use a template that is here. It has to be in a TSV format, and then merge it. That's basically what it says. So we basically need to get the URL in a TSV format. The way we do that, so this is the one that we like, the robot templates that we like, and we did multiple times, but here I am because I have PTSD. Trim white space, so we're good. So what we do, super simple. You go, and if I say it's simple, it's because it really is. You go to File, you go to Share, Publish to the web, and then here it tells you, do you want to publish the entire document? No, we want the specific spreadsheet that I called Simple Updated. And I want to make sure that this is in a TSV format. All of these should be in our Mondo documentation. But on that page, this is we should put part of this video. And then you click Publish. Are you sure? Yes, we're sure. And so it gives you basically a whole. It gives you a link that says this is where you published it. So you take this is your this is your URI for the spreadsheet. So we're gonna copy this URI, close, and basically what you want to reuse this code, but replace the XXXXX with the your URL from your spreadsheet. So to make our life today easier, I just put it in the Google spreadsheet. In practice, when I do this, I make sure that I have this component, like I just copy paste this whole thing and then update the XXS. So however you want to do that, that's easiest. Uh, Whatever you want to do that is easiest for you, that's fine. And then I go here in my command line and I copy this and then return. And then it's going to do its thing. One thing to be careful also, because we have had a lot of those problems, see on each side, maybe let's see if I can, on each side of the IRI, there's this little apostrophes. Sometimes it sometimes it doesn't work because the apostrophe is not the correct apostrophe. I don't know why and how, and that happens a lot when you copy paste. So if for some reason it doesn't work, you can also put the double quote. The double quote also work. Um, but yeah, if you copy paste, that's fine. And also when you use this, I don't know how much experience you have with the terminal here. It's a pain because if you type this, you can, like, I'll show you here without doing anything. Oh, maybe I'll do in a different to show you. You cannot just go here with your cursor. You literally have to, with your arrows, go here and then manually remove them and then paste. So if you realize you made a typo here, you might have, I know there's ways, but I always don't find them, but you will have to go and use your arrows to go in the right place. So just keep that in mind when you use this when you want to paste this command line, whatever works best for you, it is fine. Okay, so this has run. There's a lot of blah blah blah. This is what I did. I use ODK. I went to Docker. Blah blah blah. I don't see anything that says errors, so we're good. Um, if we look at um, the if we look at the diff here, we can see that the synonym was added. Let's go back to what we added. We added the synonyms, and we added this URI, this GitHub uh, link, this different terms that were created. And so here you can see the synonyms as two different synonyms instead of having one that is, so this one here, instead of having one big long one with a quote, then we have two synonyms. Here for the cross-reference, same thing, we have here two cross-reference. So this is what we expected. Fantastic. Now, any questions before I go further?
No, I'm good.
So now, as you mentioned previously, in Mondo, we know that we cannot have, no, thank you for now. We cannot have just a definition like this. We need to have a cross-reference. And when you have a cross-reference, like database cross-reference, we need to say if it is Mondo exact or equivalent or this sort of thing. So we basically need this information here. This is an annotation, therefore we can do it on the template. And this is very simple. All we have to do is add a column next to the information that you want to add information to. So definition is here. We're adding a column just next to the definition to the column definition, and here I call it definition cross-reference because it's an annotation and it's an annotation that has a cross-reference. The name for it is the same, a blah blah blah, blah has dbxref. The difference is that I'm adding that little caret or bigger than sign. And what it indicates is that this annotation, the annotation that is in this column, refer to whatever annotation is to the left, to the column on the left. So here we add a cross-reference to a definition. Here we add a source annotation because here, like for equivalent to, we want a source. So we're adding a source to the column that is before that. And here, and sorry, source. And then here we added modo equivalent because it's just a name, right? Here for exact synonym, there's two things we want to add. We want to add the cross-reference. So same thing, the little caret, blah, blah, cross-reference with the split. And then I also wanted to add that it was a synonym that was ClinGen preferred, or it was an abbreviation. And for this, I also put the same sign. It means that it's the annotation referred to the previous column, but to be more exact, it's the previous column that didn't have a sign. So it's like referring to the exact synonym. And here, because when we add, let's find an abbreviation here. Okay, abbreviation. Let's say do we have an abbreviation for a disease name? AC. I should have looked for an example. Sorry, I should have. Do you have a?
I cannot think of anything now.
Well, let's just do ClinGen preferred. It's probably gonna be. Come on, Sabrina, you can do it. ClinGen label. Okay, this is. Okay, that's why I couldn't find anything. So here, when you look at the ClinGen label, the way we make that annotation, we say that it has a synonym type, and we're saying that the ClinGen label is actually here. If you search for it, ClinGen label, it has to be some annotation property that already exists, right? So we use the entity IRI for this. And so the way this is translated in robot template Word, okay, thank you, is that we have an AI. So AI means this is something that's an IRI that exists, and it is, the annotation is synonym type. And so here in this column, we will add the IRI that is needed. So this is basically the annotation that we see here. Okay, so we have we have our annotation for the synonyms. We have our annotation, the source for the cross-reference. We have the cross-reference for the definition. Perfect. One thing to keep in mind also, because we have splits equal blah, blah, blah. So here, the cross-reference has a split. We have multiple value in the same row, in the same cells. It means that all the information, all the source information will be added to all information in here. Same here. Here we have a split in the cross-reference. It means that all of these will be added to whatever is in the column before. So this gene W related disease, the synonym, will get those two references, 1, 2, because this is split. And so it means also that if you have more than one, like everything, basically everything in the main column will get everything in the other column. So in this case, this one here, there's two synonyms. Those two synonyms will get both cross-reference. So this is the part when, let's say, you can think about like if you have a lot of synonyms, but some of them have multiple reference, some of them don't. This is when you might want to have these two columns multiplied because maybe the synonyms cross-reference are different or not. If you want to see examples of that, what Katie has been doing with the non-human animals, there's a lot of examples like that where, we ended up having a lot of those columns because not every synonym had all the same. So, it's when you try it, this is how you figure it out really. It's practice. So here, let's do the same. Let's make sure that data cleanup, trim white space because we have PTSD and we want to make sure this is working correctly. We want to make sure that we get the URI. So file, share, publish to web. We want to make sure it is the correct one. Example extended. We want to make sure it's TSV. This is very important. Publish. Yes, I want to publish. And here we have the URL for this robot template. I will do my little trick here. Take this link. I can. Oh, I'm going to show you something else that I do. So I go in the Mondo folder. Like this is what we do all the time. What I do also is git status. And so the git status is telling me basically this is the branch you're in, and there's nothing already in the branch. Sometimes if I do something in the branch, it would tell me this is where you are. It's not necessary, but it helps me making sure I'm in the right place. So it's also another little trick that I do. And so now I copy pasted the command that will merge that new spreadsheet that we created. It's gonna think about it. La la la. ID. Okay. I'm checking to make sure that. So what I did here, you probably saw, I did remove all the changes that we already had. Did you see? I don't know if you realized, but like I went here and I cleared out all the changes that we had so that I could merge this new spreadsheet. If I didn't do that, then we would have had all the changes from the first one, plus all the changes for the second one. So some of those changes would have been the same, and we would have duplicated absolutely everything. I think if you run a normalization step, everything would have been rearranged, but you don't want that. Why would we want to do, why do we want to do more work on us? Anyway, so here you can see, let's go back to the spreadsheet so we see what we expected. You can see that um, this this definition has the PubMed ID. You can see that we have those two cross-reference with the Mondo equivalent too. And here you can see that there's two synonyms, both with one specific both with both annotations, both with both cross references, because this is basically what we said. Okay, any questions?
No, I'm
Okay,
good. Mhm.
so the things to remember, and this, I don't think we recorded that Obo Academy. So Nicole and I, we were at the beginning that robot existed. We used it a lot. We had a lot of there was always something not working, and every time we would have a robot template working the first time, it was a big celebration. So we know what to look for. The thing to look for is those the split equal pipe, something to remember. If you reuse the templates, if you put split equal pipe everywhere, that's going to solve your problem. Any typo anywhere in line 2, it's definitely gonna, and you will see like when you run it in your terminal, it will say Manchester error. That's the sign that there's something wrong with the template. Um, the so typo, and then also as I mentioned, the white space. It's something we would have all the time, because especially if you copy something from here. So here is like examples of robot template. Every time we would copy something from here, we always had those white space. And now that we know that there's a way to remove them, that makes things simple. Um, Also, and that happened, not it happened for this one specific project because of how the data was. But if you have something here that have, let's say, a quote, then for some reason it's going to expect, a quote that open and a quote that closes. So if you have special character in your notes, um, just be careful. Like if you have parentheses or quote, you would, for what you're going to do right now, I think you will not have problems. The way we had problems because we had data from somebody else, and it was, it went through so many, so many hands before getting to us. So that was that. Also, so as I said, whatever is in the spreadsheet will be added into Mondo or into your ontology, because you can do that with pretty much anything, any ontology. So if there's already a term with, well, I don't know, if there's already a label, it's just going to add another label. If this something that already exists, it's just going to add more information to it. However, there are a few things that it will it will fail on, and it's based on if the changes goes against the OBO rules. So the OBO rules are rules for the OBO format. So one of those is a comment for some, and this is the one that happens very often with me, especially when I want to add the the oscillation tag. If there's already a comment, then the OBO rule says you cannot have two comments, and so that's going to fail. And here you will see error like OBO format something. So if there is, and most of the time it's there's two comments. It's it tells you, so it will fail in the first thing that it finds. So if you have, let's say, 10 terms and you have five five comments that already existed, and you try to add another comment, it's going to fail in the first one. You're going to update it, and then it's going to fail on the second one, and then you update it. So it's it's one of those that's really not practical, but also we have learned that if you add information to new terms, we need to check that, you know, did the term already had a comment or not. So there's a few things like that, like adding two comments that is going to fail, but in the when you run it on your um, on your terminal, it will be very clear if the if it fails, it's going to tell you it fails because there's a problem with the spreadsheet itself, or it's going to tell you it fails because it's breaking an over format rules. You will find both of those errors eventually in your ontology career. And then at that point, you can cross that bridge um, as you get there. That's, for example, one thing that also happened very regularly is that I would put notes, but I forget to put a title on this column, and then it will tell me in a
Mm-hmm.
way or another. I don't remember. I don't think it says you need a column, but we have failed so many times that we know, like, okay, what is the problem? And usually you know, we know what we have been doing wrong often, so we know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
Question.
Yes. When using robot template, how do I get the new ID for a new term? Do I still go into Protege for that?
So you are the one who decides what let me you quote unquote decide what new ID should be added. So there's some project where we say we're creating a new ID. This is, we have an ID range just for terms that we add. If you're doing that, what I do, whether or not it's a good idea or not, is that I just start writing, just to see what is my next ID. So I take here and then I you know, just add. Some people keep track of what is the last ID they used, and then they just take the next one. If you use one that already exists, um, it will basically, so let's imagine this one already exists. What's going to happen is that all of the information here will be added to the existing term. And then you see this here, and you're just like, okay, this is a problem. Because this is so simple, another trick, sometimes, like, and Katie said, I don't remember saying that, but I believe, like, work smarter and not harder. So let's imagine you realize, oh, this idea already existed, blah, blah, blah. It's easier, in my opinion, to just go here, discard changes, update your spreadsheet, merge merge the spreadsheet again. Because in reality, merging the spreadsheet takes 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes. You saw how quickly that goes. So sometimes, like, if you have a lot of, and it depends on everything, right? But if you have a lot of terms here, and then you realize, oh, I forgot to split, just start again, because it's easier and faster than going and updating manually. Okay, so as I said, it's good to know how to create these, the A, and then if you don't know, like that happens to me. I don't know if I can use the IAO or oboe and owl. I just put the IRI of the annotation property. It's it works. It's fine. It's easier in some ways. So these are easy to remember, but also what everybody does, just reuse those two lines, or reuse this line of um, of existing templates, because why reinvent the wheel? I've been talking for a long time. Like Yusuf was like, how does it not exist yet? I don't know because we are we are very slow. Um, we should have, and this is the beginning of that. It's not on the Mondo um, Google Drive, but we could have things like that with everything that you basically need to have that you could use or you would need to use like a comment in subset, this sort of things. And then we can update to that so that if you need something, you can either copy the whole thing and update what you need. Most of the time, because it's easier for me to look at a spreadsheet. If this is, if I have information only for those four things, or those four things, I don't want to see the rest. So I would not use a big spreadsheet. I would just focus on what I need. But you can use a whole spreadsheet and just not add wherever, you know, just not add what the things that you don't need to add, basically. Okay, so that was anything about annotations.
Mm.
Now, there's other things that we have in the ontology, and one of those is the subclass of. Is very important, like especially if you want to add like there's a gene or annotation to the gene. I feel like axioms they look more complicated, but they are simpler, maybe. I don't know. So here is another template. As you can see, same thing. First two row. The first row is always the ID. And then here, because I already removed all the information, but the idea was actually, let me go back and then add all the one that we said should be added. So since we already added these ones, I remove the label here because this term already exists, but it's helpful for me to know what it is because of, I work in the spreadsheet, so it's easier for me to see. So subclass of anything that is here. Oh, thank you. Everything that is here, subclass of, you add SC. SC means add a subclass. And then the percentage is basically the variable to be added. So here, Mondo, whatever this number is, and because it's easier for me to review this, I put the parent name here. So this is the parent name, and the source. Remember, the source is the same thing. It's an annotation with a little caret here that says this annotation refer to what is next to it, so to the parent. And so that's why the parent name cannot be in between. So either you have the parent name after the source, or you can put the parent name before the source. But the caret always says this is this is a column that is just before me, or just before me, as long as it doesn't have a little plus or like greater than sign. So here for the parent subclass of, and we know that subclass of for the parent, it basically means is-er. So we know that subclass percentage means is-er. But you can also say here, like there are subclasses that says it has material bases and mutations, it has characteristic, it has like basically absolutely all the relations you can think of. So the way that works is that you put SC, put subclass of, in the little with the quote around. So SC, and then you basically write whatever your subclass of annotation is with the percentage. So here has characteristics some percentage, and then you can either write the name of it, like autosomal recessive inheritance. You can also put the ID or the IRI for this. And that's going to show, I'm going to show you here with the gene. So with the gene, um, it's a subclass annotation. It has material basis in germline, some percentage, some gene. It works either way if you put the name of the gene, as long as the gene already is in Mondo, or if you put the IRI for the gene, which is the HGNC number. I highly suggest that you use the IRI for genes. The reason is for multiple, no, there's multiple reasons for that. Sometimes you don't know whether or not the gene is already in Mondo. If you add the IRI, it's going to be added automatically in Mondo, and it's going to be added with the correct IRI. So when we update the import later, at some point during the release process, then we're going to be also updating, oh, this ID, this IRI is actually gene one, two, whatever, ABC gene. And if it's not in Mondo, it's going to be created and added into Mondo. So you don't have to go through the whole import this gene, add this gene. It's basically like for the short time, all you'll see is an IRI. But once we update the import, it's going to be updated. We also so genes and taxon is something that I always use the IRI instead of the name, because then I don't need to worry whether or not it's already in Mondo. It's going to be added automatically. I'm lazy. I take that shortcut. Also, what we realize is that if you put this gene, and we realized that during when Katie was doing adding all those non-human animal diseases, some of the genes had the same name, whether they're in human or in dog. And so by putting just the name, protege for some reason, because it was created by men, probably men for men, it's gonna think, oh, this is the human gene, when actually we meant the other gene. So because of that, and because now we do have a lot of animal, non-human animal genes in Mondo, um, this is why I always try to use the IRA when possible, because it's safer in my mind. And then you can also add equivalents. So here we have, the equivalent is it is this parents, and it has material basis and some genes. So in these examples, um, we this example comes from when we were adding a lot a lot of terms that were different type 1 interferonopathy. So we had 5 terms that has, defined the same way, but the gene was different. So this is why this is you can reuse the same equivalent, but just change the name, the gene. So the gene is the variable, basically. And so EC means equivalent class. So SC for subclass of, EC for equivalent class, and then you add that. And then the same way, we'll, make sure that we're happy. Let's say we're happy with what we're seeing. Data cleanup, trim what space. Okay, we're good. We should be good. And then I get yes. No, see, one cell. So when you do that, make sure you select everything. So go here in that corner, select everything, and then I knew there was. See, I knew sometimes I'm paranoid. It's like, yeah, this is a good reason to be paranoid. Um, File, share, public to web. Let's make sure we get the correct one, which is example axiom. Let's make sure we have TSV. And yes, we publish. We copy this entire URL, close, And then I am going to add here. So I have this here because of this presentation. In practice, I don't have that. In practice, I just go, on a piece of paper and then basically have this. I copy this, then I paste the URL, and then I copy this next to it, and then and then where is my? You can reuse here. You could reuse the one that you already used. The problem is that I never know. I often have multiple windows, and I don't know what I did where, and so I always need to double check. Okay, this has gone through. And so here we have the things that I already added previously. But then also you see this relation here with the gene and the source that we added. Here it tells you that it is this gene, but let's say if it was an an IRI that does not exist in Mondo yet, it would just show you nothing here. And then when it shows after the import update, then this will be updated here. So if it doesn't exist in Mondo, the information is still gonna be there except for the name because Mondo doesn't know the name. And then we can see how we added some um, equivalent annotations and some gene annotations, so whatever we had in here. Similarly, I mean, I think axioms are much easier because all you need to know is SC for subclass of with a percentage, and then the rest is like whatever SC, whatever the information will be with the percentage. Um, Equivalent to is a little bit trickier in a way, just because let's say you don't always know, like in this case, when you look at what it is, it's like basically adding it as the same disease. So everything in here in this column would be the same disease and material basis. So the variable would be the gene. But there's times where you want to be able to have basically a percentage and a percentage. So making the variable would be both the disease that is the parent and the gene. We have ways to make it happen. It is basically by following this pattern, which we rarely use, but because I said that you will be using it 50 million times, you will like the only time I have been using it is working on the non-human animals because we had a big list, and sometimes in some ClinGen requests, but it's very rare. But so basically, there's different comments here. And so we're saying this is the equivalent, and then this is the parent, and then this is the rest of information. So whenever the rules are here, and we can work on examples to see if what is needed, if and when it is needed. The rest is, all the rest is the same. So, all the sorts of information, the split, all of that. Any questions?